And welcome to another Biddle on Saturday night. How's everybody doing?
Hi, everyone.
Good.
Excellent.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Happy.
Back from the dead.
All right, can we get a confirmation from the chat that sound is okay? We don't need no accidents as we go along. Awesome intro, yeah.
I can put confirmation, but might be cheating there, Rocco, actually.
You're killing me, dude.
No cheating.
All right, so we don't really have much to talk about this week because there was like hardly nothing going on in the news this week. But anyway, we did try for the distro challenge, Farron OS, and hopefully Farron shows up to take a beating tonight. And so, all right, Dan, let's start with you. What'd you think?
Right. It wasn't bad. You know, the underlying bits are obviously plasma, so that's always good for me. You know, one of my favorites. Interesting choices with applications, I think. Probably one of the biggest things that stood out was the removal of the file manager Dolphin. And
that being a good or bad thing?
I
in your opinion, because that's what this is.
Well, and so okay, so the replacement with Nemo
There we go.
was the interesting piece. I would have thought if you're going to replace it, you would have used a QT app. So like PCMan FM QT would have been kind of a logical progression there.
Right.
But I guess, I mean, if that's what you're used to, I mean, and in coming from Cinnamon, I guess it kind of made sense that it still has a look and feel that you had before. So it wasn't all bad, I guess, in that sense. It's just, I don't know, a little strange.
Well, if you're used to Farron OS, you're used to that.
Right.
But yeah, it is strange.
Yep. And so then the weird thing for me was the Mint updater, which again, coming from Cinnamon, that would have been normal, but that tends to, I don't know, bring some weirdness there for me. That didn't really flow well with Plasma.
Was it issues with installing, or was it just weird because it was from Mint?
I don't know. It just didn't tightly integrate, I don't think, as well as like even Muon. What might have been better there? I don't know.
Yep.
Yeah. Other than that, though, I mean, you know, good solid week. It was good stuff.
All right, Zeb.
Yeah, I'm actually using it now, so that's how well it's performing on my box. We had a few hiccups initially with the installer. For some reason, Calamares didn't like my particular setup, so he temporarily put Ubiquity on. So I eventually got it installed, and then we started working on the Calamares installer, and he fixed whatever it was that he needed to fix, and now it installed perfectly well, as I say, on my particular setup. And yeah, it just works. I'm not so worried about the Dolphin exchange. I come from Peppermint and we use Nemo. I'm also not worried about the Mint updater because again, on Peppermint, that's what we use. I never got this. Why does it look different if you're using Nemo and you're not using a QT application? I mean, maybe I'm sort of theme blind or something, but it never leaps out at me that, oh God, this is jarring, this is wrong. I can never work out what the actual difference is between a GTK product and a QT product. So maybe someone will have to enlighten me after the show as to why they look different and why they can't work. So yeah, it's working, it runs, all my applications installed, and ETS plays. So that's the main thing. So happy bunny here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's definitely a difference. There is definitely a difference between the GTK and the Q apps. But to be honest with you, my opinion is that doesn't bother me. I mean, I'm a theme guy, but I think they both have their advantages as far as theming, and I think they both can look good depending on how they're themed. So using Nemo on a KDE is different, more so because you're not used to it being there, not because, you know, it's bad to be there. Now, I will say that Dolphin is way more powerful, in my opinion. Gives you a lot more options, except for open as root. I mean, besides that,
Yeah.
Dolphin has every option you could want in a file manager.
Mm.
So,
I think Ferrin explained it quite well in the Telegram group chat, that he was just more familiar with getting all the extensions and the right clicks and getting the way he wanted it to work. I think over time he may learn how to use and configure Dolphin.
yep. All right, Adam, did you try Farron?
I had a whole host of Linux problems this week. The last thing I had time for was that. I had my Neon system hosed itself. I replaced it with Fedora. Then my work VPN didn't work with Fedora, and I was just I ended up on Ubuntu 18.04. But I didn't have a chance, and work and all it. No,
It's
not
all
this
good,
week.
man.
This week was not a good week.
So it's worked out well for you then, by the sound.
Yeah.
Yeah,
week.
So thumbs up. Yeah, just go for it.
All right, Popey.
So I guess I should preface this with I've never used Ferrin before, and I don't fully understand why it exists. Like, is it a toy that he created for learning, or is it meant to be used by many people? Is it a plaything? I don't know. So my perspective might be coming from someone who doesn't fully understand, what the expectations should be for the distro. So first off, I had the same problem with the installer, and I grabbed a newer ISO, and it then worked. While it was installing, I opened up a console terminal, and I noticed that he's got the font set to a non-fixed width font. So when you type, the cursor is like in the wrong place, and it doesn't look right. He has 14 PPAs enabled by default, which is a lot. And you've got to think of those PPAs. If you don't manage them, somebody else does. And you've got to have expectations of whether those things are going to get updated, or whether they're going to break, or whether the person who's maintaining that PPA is going to give up and stop doing updates, and then you've got that baked in your users' systems, right? There's in the installer, there's an icon that says Ferrin OS support, and you press it and nothing happens. Auto login doesn't work, so I set my VMs to be auto login, and it didn't. It just dumped me at the login screen, and I typed my password in. There's a typo in the text box that pops up that kind of sets the scene for what the desktop is, and it says something like emergency desktop environment, and I don't think that's what it's meant to say, but I think that's just a typo, so that's only minor. I noticed it uses Update Manager, the Linux Mint one, and that was a bit weird. I don't like that keeps nagging me to do system snapshots all the time. It's like,
yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Don't worry about
Agreed.
it, Mint. I can deal with my own backups. I'm fine. You don't need to keep punching me in the face every time I update my system and tell me I need to do snapshots, because I actually don't, because I'm doing this in a VM and I have snapshots of the VM and backups of my laptop. So just knock that on the head, please. But that's not Ferrin's fault. That's Mint, right?
Right.
He could probably patch that out, or file a bug, or nag Clem or something. I don't know. I noticed that the Ferrin store, I don't know where that comes from. Does that come from Mint as well? Because it's not Discover and it's not GNOME software. I don't know.
No, I think he's
he wrote it.
jury rigged that himself together.
Oh, wow. Well, that's impressive then. So I have nothing really to complain about that. I only have two minor quibbles, and one is you can't tell who put a application in the store. So, for example, I did a search for Spotify, and I found Spotify. I think it was a Flatpak, but it doesn't tell you the developer that published it. So I have no way of knowing whether that came from Spotify themselves or some random dude on the internet. And I think that's an important field to have in the store. So that might be a field that you could add. And the other thing is, when you install stuff in the store, you get a spinner at the top and you get a bouncy bar Like, that's really hard to do that and that at the same time. Anyway, you get a spinner and a bounce and a percentage bar as well. I think you could probably get rid of one of them.
But this is all good feedback, because if you noticed in the Telegram group all week, he's very receptive to feedback.
Yeah, and
So,
I feel bad that I'm mostly, but that's a good thing that it's mostly just visual niggles, because it's KDE Neon, KDE Plasma. It's pretty and it's usable. Like, well, what do you want? And you've got a software selection there, and
it's still experimental. He's still putting it all together.
True. And
the whole experimental desktop came from him being on Cinnamon and now switching to KDE. But I think the reason you asked what's the purpose of it, and I'm pretty sure the purpose of it was to give Linux Mint a modern look. Basically what it was, to allow people to theme it the way they wanted to. That was the purpose of Farron OS. And I think he hits that mark.
It's very impressive for a one-man job. I mean,
but it's not based on Mint anymore. It's based on 1810 right now.
Right.
Yes.
Plasma.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm saying that's the original purpose of it.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can still get the original Cinnamon ISO and download it and look at the plethora of themes he give you. They never quite worked 100% all of the time, because what he failed to remind people is, as you click the new theme, just give it a minute to work its way through the system and update every single section, because people would click, part of it would change and they'd go, oh, this is broken because it's not finished, and they would try and click something else as it was still finishing off, tweaking all the other in the background, and then before they know it, they've got 3 different themes going, and they go, rubbish, and off they go somewhere else.
One other little niggle. Sorry, I'm nearly done. One other little niggle. I installed a couple of Flatpaks from the store. The Spotify one does not work. I just get a black window and I can't use it. And the other one I installed was Firefox. That worked, but neither of them have a valid icon in the menu. So I've just got a piece of paper for Spotify and a piece of paper for Firefox. They just sound like glitches in the desktop file or something like that. But other than that, yeah, it's pretty solid. I'm pretty impressed. Yeah, it's really good.
All browsers need to be installed through the browser manager. He's got a browser manager in there. Oh,
yeah,
you did do that. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I discovered that. I thought that was pretty cool, actually, giving you a little box, So if you don't like Vivaldi, then you can use something else.
Did he get hit by the EU or something?
You fined 50 million euros.
Yeah, some of the software choices are different, and that's what makes it different, I guess. Pantheon Mail for the mail client, which was different, and that's, I guess, why that's part of the reason why there's so many PPAs in there, because he's got to pull the elementary stuff in. He's got to pull in.
Right.
I don't know why he had Peter Levi's PPA.
That's for Variety, the wallpaper switcher.
Yeah, but I didn't see Variety installed on there.
No,
that's what I had thought, but I didn't see Variety installed.
It's not running.
So I'm not sure why that PPA is in there.
Yeah, you're right.
But
so probably, I don't know, has Peter updated Variety for Cosmic that this is based on?
I don't know that.
That might be why.
And or it's possibly a leftover from the Cinnamon,
Previous
where
build.
Variety was there. So yeah.
Maybe. One app I forgot to mention that I didn't like was Zed instead of Kate. I really like Kate. It's not bad. That's pretty good for out of the box. I'd rather see that.
Yep. All right, Colin, you're up, brother.
Yep. Well, I've been following Farron for quite a while and trying his distros out for a little time now, and the reason why he does what he does, I think, Alan, is because he tries to get new users coming from Windows and make it very easy for them, allows them to theme it to look like Windows to make them feel comfortable in Linux. So that, I think, that was his number one goal with this distribution. So and as things have changed, I think, like Zeb said, changing themes and all that, I think he does have a warning up there now, just to let it go, leave it until the screen, until it all changes. So he's doing that now. So he's bringing that information forward to the user. And my experience on his KDE, well, I've installed it 3 times this week. So I had some little anomalies going on here and there. And the latest one is I changed the Inspire icons to the Inspire Dark because I just like to keep up whether he's integrated that with Nemo, because the Inspire Dark doesn't come up with Nemo. It still doesn't. But however, my Inspire icons have disappeared. So I'm now running Adwaita. So it doesn't matter what icon I choose. On the Nemo, it comes up as Adwaita. So I don't know what's happened there. I've tried running updates and that, but there's no more updates. So it's a pretty fresh ISO. So, and the Latte dock is back. So I don't know how I managed to get rid of that on the last install. So that just disappeared, and I kept trying to bring it back, selecting it in the menu and that, it just wouldn't come back. So I don't know why that happened as well. So there's obviously a few integration issues there, I would say, because of his different applications that he's pulling in from Mint, maybe from Cinnamon. So like you say, it's experimental. So it was working not too bad, but obviously he's gone through this week probably trying to make some changes with all the feedback he's getting. So, but I can see that I reckon this is going to be, he's announced on our Big Daddy Linux Live Telegram group that this is definitely going to be full-time. He wants to make this his full-time OS rather than the Cinnamon. So,
well, you've been trying this for a while, Colin.
Yeah,
so, yes or no? Good move to go to KDE?
I think it's a good move because I think it has a lot more flexibility than what Cinnamon has. I think Cinnamon seems to have restrictions in panels and all that sort of thing, and I believe they're changing that as well. But I just think I think KDE has the flexibility to give him what he needs moving forward from now with theming and so forth. So I think it's a good move. It's just going to probably take, I think he's still learning some Qt like somebody said. So may take him a little while just to get that on board, but I think it's a good move. Although I'm not sorry, Zed, go on.
No, I was just going to say, from what you said about why it's changing, I've just put a link to his blog post up where he gives quite an extensive explanation of why he's changing.
Yes, I've read that. Yeah, so I think it's a good move, and I think he's willing to learn all that new stuff, and you know all that. I'm all in favour for these one-click change things and change it up a bit, because your desktop can get a bit boring, and if you can find the perfect distro where you can change things and just change it up a bit without hopping to different distros all the time, I'm in favour of that, because I like to change it up a bit. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how things go moving forward. So, and I do agree with the console is very annoying because it's got that huge gap where you're typing. Yeah, that can be annoying. And I noticed that if you list out some files in the console, they overlap each other as well. So that was a bit strange as well. I've never seen that happen before too. So
yeah, we have mentioned it to him, and it's a 2-second fix. Just change it to Ubuntu file, and it works perfectly. I think it's Ubuntu Mono I use in there. Looks good.
Okay. So besides the small anomalies that's happened over the last day or so, I'm really looking forward to keep on track with this OS and see how it develops. So I'm sure other people have got other things they've seen. So
yep. All right, Wendy, you're up.
Well, this is the first time I've tried it, and as everybody in the Telegram group knows, I was very late to the game in getting it downloaded and getting it installed. So I spent most of the time this afternoon getting it downloaded. It was really slow, and then the rest of it just getting it installed and set up. But the first thing I noticed was, even though it was KDE and I'm very comfortable with Plasma, it was the most different out-of-the-box Plasma I've ever seen. And it looked good. It looked really good. It was kind of cool that he has taken all of the things that Plasma can do and just made it whatever he wanted it to look like. So that was pretty awesome. The only thing, the theme is bright, and as everybody knows, I'm a dark theme person.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think there was a dark in there, was there?
There is, yeah. So
is
you
there?
go to look and feel. It's the same dark theme that's in every version of Plasma, but because the file manager is not integrated, you click look and feel, it is still that same bright white file manager. So I mean that
you can actually change that if you go to the GTK theme settings. He actually has a Farron OS Dark theme.
I'm just used to, you clicking look and feel in Plasma and it changes everything.
Yeah.
But where it's experimental, he's got plenty of time to do all of those little tweaks. I'm also learning a little bit of QML myself, and I noticed he hasn't gotten the install slideshow done yet.
Right.
So if he wants to hit me up, I'm learning that too, and we can run through some of those struggles together.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Cool. Definitely reach out on the Telegram chat. He is very interested in learning from everybody and anybody who can teach him, and he's a real quick learner as well.
Awesome.
I hate him.
Oh man! All right, Thomas, did you try it this week?
Yes.
Sorry, Wendy.
Yes, I did try it. So I don't say this very often about other Linux distros, but I really loved Farron OS. I don't love it so much that I would move to it, but compared to what I dealt with last week with Elementary, I loved it. Compared to KDE, and you guys know I'm not a very big KDE fan. I loved it. It was very easy to get around in. I loved the way it looked. The only real bugs that I had were either minor and not a big deal at all, and he already knew about them, or they were really well documented. Either way. I also love that he was using Mint Update. And I'm pretty sure I talked to him about that because in my OS, I was really wanting to use Mint Update. But because of the changes they make going from Ubuntu to Linux Mint, Mint Update cannot be backported unless you make a bunch of changes. And I was having trouble with that since I'm based on Ubuntu. So I'm probably going to hit him up later to try to figure out how to get that to work. But overall, I really, really like it. I would honestly, if I were to suggest an OS to someone and I know they're okay with tinkering with things and they have basic knowledge of Linux, I would probably suggest to them Farron OS because it's really enjoyable. So that, and I've always found Mint Update a lot easier to use and a lot more verbose, I guess you could say, about the information that it has of the updates than Update Manager in Ubuntu. So that's one key thing. I use Nemo on Ubuntu, and finding Nemo on Farron OS is just like I was right at home. The Qt thing wasn't that big of a deal for me. It was a little bit weird having to wait for that theme to propagate through the system. And I'm sure as he develops it, that'll speed up and you won't have to wait nearly as long. But that's a bug I've never encountered with any other OS before. So, but overall, I really enjoyed it.
Nice. Very good feedback. All right. Dark One, did you try it?
Unfortunately, I did not get a chance. I have been having my own computer issues. So, like Adam, no, I did not. But I have tried Farron in the past, and I really do love the work that he does on it. And that obviously that was based on the cinnamon spins, but I look forward to getting the chance to actually try it.
After your computer problems.
Yeah.
And let's get this true. They're not computer problems. He's bought a brand new laptop, and he's now decided
There's that computer
what to put on the old one. So there's not It's not. It's problems of self-made. I think, unlike Adam's, where his machine just went.
Oh no! The workstation blew up, so that's one of the whole reason for the new computer.
You never mentioned that, or I missed it in the Telegram group.
So the old gaming machine is now running Ubuntu 18.04 with Unity, and then I'm stuck on the other OS. So
Yes, but tell everybody what you had told me before. Like
What?
earlier in the day, he says to me, "Yeah, I'm not on any, like I'm usually on these outskirts crazy distros, but I'm not on any of those right now." And then he says he's on Unity. I was like, "Yeah, that's a little bit."
It's not that
Now
out
in
of-
time. Maybe a year ago it would have been out of the ordinary, but
humbug.
now in time, Unity's a little on the outskirts.
I say Pasha.
Mm-hmm.
I told you not to set stuff on fire.
System,
All right.
you shush.
Rocket Wolf, did you get to try Farron OS this week or no?
Actually, yeah, I did. I have it open right now in a virtual machine, and I can't say I'm as enthusiastic about it as others. I don't love it, but I did like the fact that I was able to go in and immediately theme it to Oxygen, which seemed to theme very quickly to make all the adjustments. Even as a new user, it was easy to find that straight off the bat. Some of the things didn't like about it was the fact that the desktop widgets, after you've got whatever ones you like placed and where you like it, and then you shut down and restart, they all default back to the top left. Didn't like that at all. It just doesn't, and I've tried several ways of either restarting or just logging out of the session and logging back in. It just doesn't matter. Just always goes back. I didn't like the fact that I have to rearrange those and pull those out every time.
So, quick question for the technical people. Could that be something to do with why auto login doesn't work? Is there some sort of, he's got some permissions thing in the background wrong?
Yeah, well, I think what it is just writing.
Auto login does work.
It does. I don't think it's writing to the file or the config file to save it every time. It's glitchy. So again, work in progress.
Mm-hmm.
It may work on some and it may not work on others. It's really, really finicky. And I even had issues right now. It won't detect my webcam. It won't detect a USB plugged in. It could be an issue with the VM, but I got my VM settings to go bi-directional for all the devices, including a mouse.
I'll cover all those issues with the VM stuff when you get to me.
Okay. Right. And I figured it was going to be VM issues. I just didn't, assign that issue to Farron itself.
Oh, no, it's Farron. It's all Farron because it's not just limited to VMs. It actually does stuff with KVMs as well.
Okay, right on. So no disk manager, no disk utilities. I couldn't pop out high enough out of the file system to find attached disks. So, that was a little bit of an issue. It's very simple. I like the way it's being designed. I like the way he's progressing with it. I like the rolling updates, especially with pretty major changes that he makes. I think it's probably going to end up being a really good product, and I've seen several instances where he's mentioned this being aimed at new users, people switching over from Windows into the Linux world. So, yeah, I see this as being a very, very nifty little introduction, as long as it gets all these little things ironed out.
Yep. Well, I mean, if you had tried the Farron OS on the Cinnamon version, he had every Windows theme possible installed on it, so you could make it look like XP to 98 to whatever you wanted it to look like. So yeah, he is going for the newer users.
Yep. So I guess all in all, I'd say as this progresses, I'd probably look at maybe installing it as a secondary. But right now, I think, just as a VM, there just might be some little issues associated with that. I don't know. But it's okay.
Yep. All right, Dave, what'd you think, man?
Like Zeb, I've got it running right now. It's what I'm talking to you through. It installed just fine. I dumped all my 10,000 apps that I normally use into it and started playing, and not many things that I came across. I couldn't figure out how to change settings in Nemo because I personally prefer single click in my file browser. And even when I set that in the system, it was still double click in Nemo. Redshift, which I use a lot, was not in the menus. I had to set that to auto start from the command line. There is something called software sources in the menus that I clicked on and nothing happened. It worked really well getting the NVIDIA drivers in. He had the PPA for that already set up. So that wasn't one of the ones I had to add of my own. The only issue with NVIDIA that I've come across is in OBS trying to switch from the 264 to NVENC. It doesn't give that option. So I've been messing around trying to figure out what that issue was. And like some of the others, the gap when you're typing in console, mainly because I spend most of my life in console whenever I want to change something. I usually don't do GUIs much except for original, system setup stuff. Anytime I want to add or subtract software, I go through the console. But everything has worked for me. Steam worked, games worked. Everything I've tried has worked. It's just been a really good, solid system for me, and it won't be my primary, but I am definitely going to leave it on one of my hard drives to throw in every once in a while, make sure I update it and keep it going, because it's a nice Ubuntu-based system that I could get used to.
Mm-hmm. Dave, a quick tip for you on that Nemo. If you right mouse click where it shows you what directory you're in, it brings up the file menu. Then go edit, preferences, behavior, and it's in there. It's the very first item. Single click to open items.
Okay, I'll find it.
You got to right click on some spare space up the top, and it'll actually show you the file menus.
Yeah.
I definitely prefer single click too.
You won't go down that road.
Anyway,
quick question.
Go ahead.
Can you install snaps from the Farron store? Because I could not do that from.
No, you have to install Snapd first.
Right.
But does it have Snap support?
Where it was based on 1810, I just assumed that Snap was installed. So I went to install Telegram because I always install it by Snap anymore. And it told me that Snap wasn't there.
Yeah, just install it via the command line, because I love the fact that Simple Note is also now a Snap.
Mm-hmm.
I like the fact that when you click the welcome screen right there at the bottom, it says install software, and you're given 3 choices: Software Center, Snap Apps, and Flatpak Apps. Now, whether there's should be any precursor to snaps won't work unless you have something else installed first, I think that would be important to have if that's, the way it is. But I like it's right there at your fingertips, right at the welcome screen.
Yep.
I loved the web browser configurator he had, where you just open it up and you can choose which web browser you want installed and uninstalled, and it's just a simple click, password, done. Because I don't use Vivaldi, and it comes with Vivaldi by default. But in that thing, it's easy. Click, password, Firefox, done. And a restart, because the Firefox icon didn't show up by default, and I had to restart to get the Firefox icon.
Yeah, but if you want Firefox nightly, you still got to go in through the command line.
Yeah.
Doing everything from the terminal installing. I missed the browser switcher. Because I just,
Oh, I never clicked on it. I saw it, and I didn't know what it was, so I never clicked on it.
See, now that's why I would have clicked on it. just because I didn't know what it was. But this is all great feedback for Farron, because I guarantee you after he watches this, he will have a comment for each and every one of you for your issues. And say, hey, this is what you do for this is what you do for that, because he's really good about that. So keep him coming. Climby, you're up, brother.
All right. I was actually able to install stuff through the Farron store, so maybe he updated that and got that working. The only thing that I had problems with was when after I installed software using the Farron store and I tried to close it, it wouldn't close at all. It just froze, and then I got the prompt saying, would you like to force quit? And I hit the force quit button, and it still doesn't close. So I had to X-kill it. But that worked. And then I have noticed issues with a lot of the icons not showing up. Some of them it will fix if you reboot, but others, like it uses the Elementary Photos app, and that icon still does not show up for me at all. And there's a few others where there's just no icon. As far as the Mint updater goes, the whole you have to make snapshot, or they recommend you make snapshot. That's a preference in the Mint updater.
Yeah,
so you can disable that. But as far as the PPAs go, I just the software sources, as was mentioned before, it doesn't work from the menu. But if you go to the Mint updater and you go to edit software sources, all your software sources are there. And I just recommend disabling, because there's a lot for third-party software in there. Any third-party software, PPAs that you don't use, just disable. And I saw there was the OBS PPA was actually in there too. It was disabled by default, but you could enable it. But yeah, the only weird thing was, again, it's bizarre, some of the choices, because when you're used to like every KDE distro, including the majority of the KDE applications. So it's like I was looking to use a calculator, and I'm going to type kcalc, and there's no kcalc. So I'm like, where's the calculator? And then I see GNOME calculators installed, and I'm like, oh, that's an interesting choice. But yeah, as far as Nemo for the file manager, it's fine. I personally would probably just install Dolphin, but I think it's really cool how he has it themed. And I really do enjoy his default theme, and I think it's an interesting choice of application menu. And yeah, even enabling the Plasma Dark theme, you can still go into a desktop theme and enable the Farron OS, things like that, the icons and the menus and all that stuff will stay. And then he does have as I said earlier, a GTK Farron Dark theme that works really well. Yeah, interesting choice of applications, but it definitely makes it unique among all the KDE-based distros, which I think it has going for it. But yeah, the only really issue I had was the fixed font thing that was mentioned before in the terminal. Personal preference for me, if you're going to be based on Ubuntu, just use the Ubuntu fonts because they're so good. But yeah, it night and day better experience this week than I had with Elementary last week. So.
Wow, I think he just said Farron OS was better than Elementary. I think that's what he just said. Now, I think Farron's greatest accomplishment is piecing everything together through different applications, choices that maybe you wouldn't normally make. But I think that's also the biggest issue sometimes with the theming and with the integration and stuff. So I think that'll be his greatest feature and his greatest challenge at the same time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I did have the issue with the Latte dock too, not showing up after like a reboot or two. It was weird. I just ended up removing it from startup and adding the clock down to the regular Plasma panel. And I also have this weird thing where every time I start the computer, it'll pop up the KDE display thing asking me how I want to arrange my monitors.
And that's why I was wondering, does he have some sort of permissions thing somewhere where it's not writing your preferences?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I find it interesting that you were actually given that choice. As far as monitor detection goes, I've got two, and Farron cannot detect my two monitors. It's in the display settings. It also says it's a VGA monitor when I have two HDMI monitors.
Very strange.
Wouldn't even detect the second monitor, so I can't set up the two monitors. So I found that kind of faulty there.
I had no issue with my dual monitors.
Yeah,
They
same.
set up.
Was this a VM
Four,
though,
and it
Rocket?
works on all of them just fine, no problem.
Okay, Wendy, did you see the screen that comes up that says extend to the left, extend to the right?
Right, yeah.
Okay, what does that say when you got four monitors? Extend to the left, or
it
what?
throws up its hands and goes, ah!
It starts on this one, it says extend to the left, and then I have to it wants to put my last monitor here, but it's on top of my second monitor. So then I just super key displays and put it where it's supposed to go.
All right.
Done.
Extend to the left, extend to the right, stand up, sit down, fight.
Yeah, right.
I like that. That's going to be the new fight song.
Yep.
It's cool.
All right, Tyler, did you get to try it this week?
No, I did not get the chance. I was too busy all week.
It's all good, man. Are you going to, would a distro that is made by one person interest you in trying?
Trying, yes. Long term, I feel like I've been burned now by Solus. So,
all right, Christopher, did you get to try it?
Somewhat. I installed I was able to install it in a virtual box. I don't think I really intensively used it, but I'm running it right now, and I noticed the thing with the fonts that seems kind of weird. I have no idea why you would change it. I don't think it's just an Ubuntu thing. It's that the fact that many what you call TY programs, they depend on the fact that the console will be monospaced. If it's not monospaced, it will just totally put off the output. So I think I don't see why you had to change that. And just looking now, the fact people say that that they changed the file manager from Dolphin, that seems to GNOME files. That seems kind of backwards to me, because that's probably my favorite thing about KDE is the file manager. It's so rich and powerful.
Yep.
It's actually Nemo he's using, not GNOME files.
Okay. Didn't they? Nemo's I guess the cinnamon branch, or
correct? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. But the fact that there's no split screen, like you can't turn it into dual pan.
Yes, you can. Just press F3.
Oh, okay. Whatever. As I said,
sorry, it's just that we use it on Peppermint, so I know quite a bit about it.
Yeah, no problems. But other than that, yeah, it seems all right to me. Like the browser seems like a nice feature. It would be interesting to extend it to other. Perhaps it could be extended to other features of the distro, like what kind of email do you want? Possibly even file manager. I don't know. Like it. I'm just putting things out there, but yeah. Other than that, it seems like it works. It doesn't destroy anything. That's pretty good.
It's always a plus.
Yeah.
Hasn't destroyed anything yet.
But that's actually a pretty good idea, because I don't think I've ever seen anybody say, what type of file manager do you want? What type of email system do you want? They give you these really nice, pretty software centers. But yeah, like the browser, I think that could work quite well.
I think the new user setup on Ubuntu is actually the closest thing to that right now.
Maybe I should try installing it one day.
Yeah, that thing on Ubuntu, it has a predefined list of apps. So it doesn't give you choices in terms of here's 3 email clients. That there's like 16 icons on the screen, and here's some things you might like
right.
Nice.
Yeah, but you would like to keep the features limited in that case. Just
it'd be nice. You're right though. It would be nice to have like a thing that said, you pick an email, you do a little shopping list of email client, file manager, browser, and a couple of other things, and then press go, and it goes off and does everything, and then you're done. I can see how people would like that.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah.
It would be nice, but it sounds like a list of things to go wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it would be wonderful if you could make it work, but
what could go wrong?
Properly is.
We haven't got enough time for the show for that. So.
Let's write that now.
Linux is supposed
Awesome.
to
I'm
work.
done it.
Let's get Simon on that, please.
Okay, I'll let him know.
We'll send him a note.
Okay. All right.
All
right, Allie.
Hello. Good evening.
How are you?
I am fine, thank you. And hello, everybody. And apologises if I'm not replying to anybody in YouTube itself. I can't have the browser and Zoom in at the same time because my net is totally broken at the moment. Anyway, Ferrin OS. I'm liking it. I'm getting along with this a lot better than I did with last week's challenge. That's all I'm saying on that. My legs are fine. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, the downsides. The upsides first, it's stable. It has never crashed on me. I've been using it all week off and on in a VirtualBox. I haven't installed it to Real Metal, but the install went fine. It went straight in. The only things that won't run for me is Latte, although that's in the auto start. It just won't run. And the only other issue I had is every time I logged in, I had the WIP thing, work in progress notice, come up every time. So I've had to go into like the .config auto start and just remove that, stop that from loading. Because it already tells you when you on the live before you installed that you read through it, and that's that. It doesn't need to be. I don't need to be told again and again and again. What else? Yeah, I had a small problem with console. Sorry, with this space, but I believe Zeb just said the remedy for that is whatever, and that's cool. Not a problem. It's an experimental distro, so I was expecting a lot more wrong with it than I got, if you see what I mean. Nothing actually crashed on me. Everything seems to work. The only thing it didn't update was the browser. The browser box that was mentioned before, where you could choose your browser. That didn't update for me. But I was able to install Firefox out of it or Chrome or any other. That wasn't a problem. But there was an update for it in the System Center. It does have a lot of PPAs, as Climby said earlier, and mass load. And I appreciate why they're there, but I think you should disable them and put a notice somewhere saying, well, if you want to install, like, say, OBS, which was disabled anyway, like, tick the box, install what you want. And that way, his updates will be a lot faster. And when you first click the updater to download the updates, it goes away and it downloads every single repo, obviously, to the cache.
Yep.
And that will quicken that side of things up quite a bit. But apart from that, I mean, Plasma really looks nice on this, to be honest. It's one of the nicest looking Plasmas I've seen, bar none, honestly. He's done wonders with it. And for such a young, I mean, he's just a young kid as far as I know, a young lad. He's done fantastic, to be fair.
Yeah, he's 16. I think he first started messing around with Ferrum when he was 13.
Yep.
That's an achievement in itself, I think. I mean, hats off to the guy.
Yes,
honestly.
Absolutely.
Hats off to the guy.
Yep. I'm telling you, if you want a real treat, you need to go download the Cinnamon version of it, the stable version, and see all the work that he put into that as far as theming wise and stuff. That was an amazing feat as well.
I do plan in doing that actually, Rocco, I really do. Because what he's done so far has been amazing. Being as he's on his own, he's done better than some other distros I've done with teams behind them. I am just saying, he really has. So those are my thoughts. I'll let Systrom have his, because he wants to mention about VirtualBox and so on to
Who wants to let Systrom talk?
Well, you know.
I do. He gives some
If we
awesome
have
tips
to.
on playing games.
No, there you go. So it is his fault after all.
Systrom, you're up.
1 second. I have to wait for the child and the other people to clear so I can talk without screaming in the background.
I'm sorry that I have to change your son's diaper.
There you go.
It's all good, man.
I'm glad that's going to be recorded for the world. That's recorded for the world.
Yeah,
In years to come, that child, this is what your mum said on cam.
Forever
All right.
embarrassed.
It is what it is. Okay, so I have 27 items.
27.
Yeah.
Subdivided into 38.
I gave up after 27. I gave up writing them down. I was like at 27. I was like, it's gonna take me. So I'm like 27 should be concise and to the point. Most of you actually covered most of the list. So I'm only gonna cover the ones. I'm gonna cover 6 that were not directly covered. They were covered but not covered.
Okay.
One, updates were broken, like completely broken, and that was because there were too many PPAs. I had to go in and disable everything and then that wrecked all of my third-party stuff. So I had to go in and fix all of that. Then I broke the OS, had to reinstall it, and so that was fun. So I thought that was because I disabled all the PPA stuff. It was because even though I'm running a KVM, which is not running VirtualBox or anything like that, it detected it was in a KVM and it installed the VirtualBox drivers, which I'm not using at all because I'm not using VirtualBox. It kept installing drivers every time. I had to go in and blacklist them to get it to install without installing those drivers because I actually passed the graphics card through KVM. So I'm using QUME stuff. So I'm using a lot of other things behind the background. And so I'm trying to get it to work and function. It does not detect multiple displays, even in KVM. On hardware, when it does that, it does really weird things where it'll turn off a display that it doesn't think it detects correctly. Or it will reset the displays wherever it feels like resetting them because that's a KDE problem. Or, I'm sorry, plasma problem. If you don't have direct write permissions in Plasma. So if you don't have direct write permissions and you don't have the ability to assign the displays to the actual file, it'll mess everything up. So when it reboots, that's what it does because it doesn't have direct write permissions. It has read permissions, but it doesn't do that. It kept removing my graphics card out of when I would reboot the KVM. It would remove the graphics card. It would blacklist the graphics card. And then it wouldn't work, and then it would break everything. And so I'm literally having to reload the snapshots. Luckily, it has snapshots out of the box, sort of. Snapshots are broken out of the box. You have to enable extra features, unlike the Cinnamon version where snapshots are automatic with the update stuff. You just go in, you click, you tell it where you want your snapshots to go, all that. Our sync snapshots don't work right. So they overwrite themselves, which doesn't make any sense. I don't know why it did that. So I had to go in and fix that. Console, I hate console. And with the fonts, console was even worse to use. So I installed Tilix. When I installed Tilix, it overwrote the ability and permissions in Tilix. So I had to go in and fix that. So I just defaulted the entire font system to mono font to fix it. Because I was like, everything was broken. Well, I can see you. I can see you, Thomas. You're giving me the, yeah. I mean, I don't know. third-party themes. Why?
What?
Why is it broken? Why are third-party themes broken for no reason whatsoever? Like, I don't know why they're broken.
Because it's experimental.
But these are themes that shouldn't be affected by the system. Like, that's what I don't understand. I get that it's experimental. I understand that. Those are things that shouldn't, I expect those to work and function because I'm pulling them in and they're separate from the system. But whatever dependencies that they're depending on that should be in the system aren't there. Which I don't know what he did. I don't know what he pulled out, what he removed.
I think it's because he just updated to 5.14 Plasma. It was working previous 5.13.5. That's probably why it only just happened. It happened to me only just with the new update. So I think that's the reason why.
Can anybody explain why when I installed a KDE based like Kden Live, why that was broken?
Because it's experimental.
I think there's possibly, as I said before, I think there's some underlying permissions problem that he's got where things like, you said it worked for you, but auto log on definitely doesn't work for me. I must have set it and reset it, turned it on, turned it off a dozen times, and I still get that flaming log on screen.
To get auto login to work, you have to actually tell it auto login when you install it.
I did.
Yep, did that.
Because if you, okay.
Yep.
Well,
I've gone in afterwards into the user settings and told it, no, look, this user auto login, save, reboot, doesn't auto login, go back in, turn it off, reboot, fine, put it back on, nothing makes it save.
Okay.
And
Bizarre.
Do you install Kden Live through the GUI or from the command line?
So I did it 3 different ways.
Because I did it from the command line. It works fine for me.
So like it doesn't give you a weird error and then break because it can't use can't use melt, can't use any of the functions. Like it just doesn't do things. It just stops.
And I'm assuming that you've got this same setup and you've used other Plasma distros and they don't have these same anomalies. So it's nothing to do with your weird KVM setup thing.
No, because it basically, the way it works is if it doesn't know it's in a KVM, the distribution will act like it's on physical hardware.
Right.
KVM doesn't know the difference. It has a graphics card passed to it. Drivers install.
Correct.
Yeah, this is important too. All right, so again, these are all issues that it's not like okay, for example, systems issues that he's been having. That's something that Farron should know about, and like I said, he's very receptive to the feedback, and I'm sure he will work on those issues. It would be great, System, if you could work with him on Telegram with your issues, and at least let him know what's going on.
Right. Well, the only major issue that I dealt with was the fact that he has a script that detects whether something is in a KVM or not a KVM specifically, but in VirtualBox or something like that. That script needs to understand, or it needs to have some kind of, and this is not just limited to this. Because I was like, okay, maybe it's experimental. So I installed the Cinnamon version. It does the exact same thing. If you install the Cinnamon version, it is whatever script he set up that tells you that it's in VirtualBox, and it's like, well, you might want to install it on actual hardware because these features are going to be disabled. That also goes in and installs drivers for VirtualBox. If you're running it in another virtual platform, it can interfere with that other virtual platform, because I tested it out to make sure that it wasn't just limited.
So this actually sounds like, a succession of issues that start with just one thing. So really, there's just one thing that he needs to fix, which is that the script that determines what kind of virtual machine it's in and does a better job of saying, well, I'm in KVM and I shouldn't do this thing, and I'm in VMware and I should do that. And
exactly. But it's not limited just to the experimental. This is something actually in his other version too. So this might be something that needs to be looked at more so than just that limited thing, which would affect when somebody's using VirtualBox. If they're trying to do things, it overrides the drivers. If it detects that it's in a different environment of VirtualBox, it also only installs a certain set of drivers for VirtualBox.
Maybe he should change that then, so it says I think you're in a VirtualBox. Would you like to?
Yeah, that would be
Say
great.
no. Mm.
Yeah. So
Hey, easy to say. I have no idea how he can program it.
So, but anyway,
Zenity.
those are the specific things. Disable PPAs by default, not to have so many enabled by default. I love all the other stuff. I'm not a fan of Nemo. Didn't like what he did with console, so I installed Tilex. But other than that, everything else, I mean, other than those issues that were all related to hardware kind of stuff or kind of confusion stuff. Other than that, after the 34 crashes, it bounced back, no issues. I was able to restore and have no issues whatsoever. No data loss, no problems, nothing like that. I was able to connect to my virtual machines that I need to be able to connect to. I was able to connect to, all of the, so I have storage stuff that I need to be able to connect to. The Samba worked out of the box, no issues with that. Everything with that worked. And I detected 2 printers and was able to use those printers without any problems. Unlike that other thing.
Yeah. It's a theme tonight. Unlike
I was
last
about to
week's
mention
challenge.
that.
But yeah, the printers worked and there was no issues. And what's even funnier is I have a VPN that I set up on the network, and I was able to assign an IP to the KVM, and I was able to print to a printer that's not even on my network.
Nice.
That's really kind of funny because my install would not even detect the printer, and it still does not.
And that has to do with if you have it in a virtual box, he doesn't have any of the advanced driver stuff. It installs the basic drivers.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right. Paul, you got sound working?
I believe I got sound working. How's it going?
What's going on, man?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I liked it because I'm a KDE fan, Kubuntu. So yeah, it was really nice. I liked all those browsers. I installed all the browsers. I think there were 7 of them. Yeah, I agree with Poppy and with Thomas. I think it was. Yeah, it's pretty good.
All right. There was a question in the chat earlier about. Okay, so Christian asked. He hasn't used Linux for about 6 years, and he's starting to fall back into it again. Any recommendations on what type of PC would be great to get? Now, I'm not sure if he's talking about hardware or what.
If he's talking
distro to
hardware,
start with, or
if he's talking hardware, do not get a Broadcom Wi-Fi card. Do not.
Yeah, Broadcom's bad.
Yeah. If you really want,
which is in everything usually.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. If you really want good performance, then an Intel processor or an AMD processor, but Intel tends to be a little bit more reliable and stuff like that. But at this point, that's entirely personal preference because AMD is getting way better processors.
Yeah.
Graphics cards, it used to be they said go NVIDIA, but the AMD drivers, from what I've heard, have caught up. So somebody fill in there.
I still have a disagreement with that because I recently bought a Vega 64 and sent it back a week later because it didn't perform as well as my NVIDIA 1060. Now I've got an NVIDIA 1070 Ti and it's awesome. So, yep, they're getting there, but they're not quite there yet, I don't think. The beauty of AMD is you don't have to worry about proprietary drivers. The thing just installs any distro, bang, wallop, thank you very much, get on with it.
And the new kernel has modules for the latest AMD chipsets too.
A distro hopper's dream.
Yep.
So what the other question would be is, does he need it for gaming? Does he need it just for general purpose? Is he looking for a desktop? Is he looking for a laptop?
He wants it for some gaming and for use with school.
Okay.
Right.
With the gaming, here's an important thing to remember. If you have to have a swap partition, then you have a choice on where to put it if you have a multi-drive setup. If you put it on your faster drive, it will wear down that drive faster, but you will have better performance. If you put it on the slower drive, that drive will your drives will last longer, but your performance will be degraded. Just make sure that your swap is the same size as your RAM. That way you can go into suspend even when you have like full RAM.
Yeah, I think that might be true of the older SSDs.
Yeah, I don't think SSDs have that reliability problem anymore.
They haven't for a long time. No.
It's the reason for it is because SSDs have a limited number of reads and writes. Now, newer SSDs have that sky high, but that's still something you have to think about. And doing that a swap, you're going to.
I disagree. It's not something anyone has to think about in 2018. If you buy an SSD now, it will last longer than you will be alive.
Absolutely, 100%.
I keep trying to kill mine, but
with a lot of people's systems nowadays, they have enough RAM that they're not writing to swap anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I say that is I have a friend, Gideon. He had an SSD at one point, and he had a swap partition on it, and the drive failed. The drive was brand new, and it failed within a year.
Drives fail, though. You can't necessarily say it was swap that did it. Drives do fail.
This is true, but when he scanned it using gparted from a live USB, it was specifically the area that was the swap partition that had failed. So either he had a terrible SSD or something.
There are cheap crap SSDs. They do exist.
Do not get a crap SSD. That is not something to cheap out on. Get a good SSD. If you have to pay $200 for a Samsung Evo, do it.
Let me ask you guys a question for Christian here. Where do you start? Do you go to your local Best Buy, buy a computer, wipe it, and put Linux on it? Do you buy it from Dell and get Linux installed?
Depends on the budget, really. I always start with what's the budget and what do you want to do with it? Like, and if your budget is like low, like the low hundreds of dollars, then I would look at the secondhand market because, and if you're not looking for super high performance, the secondhand market for like ThinkPads, just as a bit of a ThinkPad fan, is pretty good because there are tons of them out there. They're sold to enterprises, and so there's loads of them in the secondhand market. The market is flooded with them, and so you get something that is robust, runs Linux really well. You can take it apart and replace parts in the enterprise versions, the ThinkPad line. I wouldn't go the Yoga line because they're horrible. But the ThinkPad line are. I'm saying that with one in pieces on my desk, right? So I know of what I speak. So yeah, that would be my. But if you really, really want something for gaming, I'd be inclined to get a desktop and not a laptop.
Absolutely.
Just come back and say his budget is 1,000.
That he's looking for a desktop and his budget's $1,000.
$1,000, you can get gold-plated desktop for that.
No, not quite
He
gold-plated.
can put some nice hardware.
Build your own. I would build your own.
You buy a second-hand one for 500.
Well, that depends if he wants to go full open standard or open hardware. If he does that, then he can go like a Ryzen CPU, an X470 motherboard, a AMD GPU, because then all drivers are all open. Everything is absolutely open and fully supported by the kernel. No extra drivers are required.
So in regards to the AMD graphics card thing, this is my personal issue. I tried an RX 580 and the AMD GPU drivers, and it worked okay. I mean, it was all right. But I found that I had to upgrade the kernel to get the latest driver. I had to upgrade Mesa to get the latest stuff, and I had to use some Mesa Git packages and stuff to get the absolute best performance out of it. And if I'm going to go jump through those hoops, why not just install proprietary drivers and get better performance?
Because
I agree.
I agree.
But I'm on Team Green.
Team Green.
Yeah.
Better than
NVIDIA drivers are absolutely atrocious.
Wait. Hold on. Not everybody can talk because nobody can hear when there's 4 people talking. So that's great. Just one at a time.
I'm going to raise my hand.
I got a question.
You don't have to raise your hand. Just, just try not to talk over each other.
Right. Install KDE. Why is the kernel like 4.15 and not the 4.19? I have to update it.
Because I think he's basing it upon 1810 and it's whatever, or 1804. It's whatever comes with the baseline distribution.
The LTS,
Because I put it on the 1804, that's why.
Yes. Yeah.
One thing that might be interesting for people building PCs is to go and look at something like PC Part Picker and price up a PC with individual components and see what it comes to, like a desktop, and then share that with the community and say, how could I improve this? You'll get loads of opinions, just like everyone here speaking at once with their valuable experience and opinions. But it's a good way to get, people might say, oh, I tried that motherboard, it wasn't as good as this one, and there's a deal on a Best Buy for this one, or that video card's not as good as this one, and you get loads of feedback. But if you start putting it together on PC Part Picker, then you'll get loads of feedback from people about how you can improve it.
Just don't ask for suggestions on our Linux on Reddit.
Yeah,
right.
It's interesting you should say that, because I did that when I was doing my build, and then I was absolutely totally disinterested in doing my own build. So having got that PC Part Picker together, Part Picker list.
All the parts.
I then went around to people like Overclockers and Scan and PC Specialists, and then found the closest match that I could to that list of components. So yeah, that's the way I did it. And then I bought something that I've now got support from a company. So you don't have to buy your parts, but it's a good idea. That's a good place to start and get your list going.
I think it's the best option is to build your own through the parts, because then you can customize it to exactly what you want. And like Popey said about deals and everything, you can get good deals on really good parts. If you're not comfortable with building it, then that's probably not the way to go. Okay,
it's just a skill you learn. It's not that harder than Lego.
Well,
to be
it's
honest.
not. I mean, it is a skill that you learn, and I agree, because everybody learns it. But if you're not comfortable with it and you don't really want to do it, you can mess up some parts that you might have to replace.
But it's not like
the only twitchy part is the thermal paste on the chip. Really, everything else is like plug and play.
Or shorting the board out, or
I mean, every computer that's been in this house since 1998, I've built.
The nice thing
I've put together.
The nice thing about building them is you can. Sorry, Zeb. Is you could buy it in over a period of time. Like if there's a deal on something this week, you could get the motherboard this week, and then in 2 weeks' time, waiting for the new release of some other better graphics card, you could wait for that, and so you get that repeated gratification because you've got lots of different things coming in over a period of a couple of months. Obviously, if you're in a hurry to get it.
I would rebut that with
I'm
there
putting
are
together one here for. I'm trying to put together one so I could do the distro challenges and not have to redo my laptop all the time.
I would rebut Popey's point about the overtime thing. With there are a few parts I would order together just so I can make sure I can test them and make sure they work within return period.
Yes, that's a good point.
And the only problem with building your own is if you've got two left tongues like I have, then you're in trouble.
Right?
Yeah, and Popey had mentioned the secondhand market as well. I mean, there's the secondhand market for pre-builds as well. You don't have to necessarily spend the $2,000 on like some monstrous machine, from who knows what.
It's not like you're buying an Apple, is it?
Well, there you go. Yeah,
that's exactly right.
And Paul, if you're thinking about buying a second machine to test distros on, I would get like an IC dock and just get extra SSDs, because all I do is yank out my main one, put in another one, throw in the USB drive with the ISO on it, and install it to. I mean, because I've got different distros on different SSDs, and whichever one I want to play with or update, that's the one I throw in. So you don't need an entire second machine to test distros. It's very easy to do in one.
Do those IC docks like plug into the SATA ports on your motherboard?
Yep. Yes.
They're super, those are. I've had those IC docks before. They're really good.
Yeah,
they're super, unless you get one like mine that none of the bays work anymore, where all of the SSDs are stuck in there and they won't eject.
You just need skinny SSDs.
Shoving them in.
They're handy if you have 5 1/4 inch bays.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, Rocco's just so pumped to try a distro. He just shoves the drive in there and it'll never come out.
It's jammed in there, dude. No, I'm serious. There's 3. I had a one tray that was so jammed in there it wouldn't come out. So I had to actually take the whole IC dock apart to get the disc out. And I haven't used that. I ended up pulling my test test SSD out the other day, put it back in, it won't come back out. None of them. I tried them all. All 4 of them are stuck in there.
To be fair, those icy docks are built to a budget. They're not.
Right.
Yeah.
They're handy, but they're not. They're a bit cheap.
And I think the biggest problem with them is there's a spring, a big curved spring and I've even tried taking it apart and flattening out that spring a bit so it doesn't hold it. But to be honest with you, I think it really is the connectors right at the end when you push it in, they just don't have enough play. So once it's in,
gripping onto your drive really hard.
And even when I've got it in out of the machine, I had to use a pair of snib nose or long nose pliers to pull the SSD out. So like Rocco, I've given up. It's there. They're on. The good thing is the on-off switches work. So
yes, that's true.
Yeah,
that's the only.
I must have a different dock because mine doesn't have on-off switches, but it works really well, and the drives come.
They've got a lot of models. They've got. They've been around.
Yes.
Yeah.
I bought this one.
Michael did a review on. Looks awesome. I want.
Yeah, that's the one that I bought, and it was.
I bought this one on the recommendation of tuxdigital.com/bigdaylegs. Yeah, him. And this is what I get: an icy dock that won't reject any drives. Just saying.
Snap.
All right.
Yeah, if you have a laptop, they actually have hard drive caddies for your CD-ROM drive, so you can use that too.
Yep.
Or
It's
the darn Blu-ray in here anymore anyway.
Right.
Yeah. Nobody needs a disc anymore. If you really need one, you can get an external DVD or Blu-ray drive. You're done.
Right.
Yep.
Or you can literally go to a desktop, which most of them still have DVD or Blu-ray drives. Pop it in there, do what you need to do, put it on a flash drive, move to your laptop, you're done. It's a little bit harder, but it's so much easier. So
unless your laptop is so old that it doesn't boot from USB drives.
Wow.
Or unless you have a BIOS issue that you can't boot from USB drives. Me.
Yeah.
All right, so Christian, I hope that answers your question, and you let us know what you end up getting.
Just don't get a Broadcom Wi-Fi driver.
Because he did mention
unless you want the pain of Linux.
Yes.
Well, he mentioned either Ubuntu or Fedora, and I would suggest Ubuntu myself.
If you're starting back in, go with Ubuntu to start off with, and if you want to move to Fedora later, but Ubuntu to start off with,
or just stay with Ubuntu. Just
just stay with Ubuntu.
I mean, stay with it on Ubuntu.
Just don't bother. Just stay.
Just
switch to Arch.
Yeah, switch to Arch.
Not initially, no, please.
If you're getting any kind of Wi-Fi card of any kind, make sure it works with a driver that is very commonplace.
Yeah.
Because
basically any Intel job did.
Broadcom is commonplace.
Yeah, Intel's really good.
I actually I have a desktop that it only had Ethernet, and it was going to be a pain to run Ethernet from it to the router. So I literally went on Amazon and bought a PCIe Wi-Fi card because I had nothing else I could do. And it was so sketchy, like, is this going to work? And thankfully, I didn't have to install drivers. The kernel just had it in there. It was like, hallelujah, the Linux gods have spoken.
Well, it was always anti-strapper.
All right. So we have some news to cover that I think we should get everybody's opinion on. IBM buys Red Hat.
What?
So
$34 billion.
News to me.
$34 billion.
All right, Adam, seeing how you set it off there, what does this mean? Like, what was the takeaway from IBM buying Red Hat?
So, as somebody who has the pleasure, so to speak, of dealing with IBM on a weekly basis, it's not good. So IBM buying Red Hat, they say that the Red Hat's going to be independent. I have no reason to not believe them because IBM has actually been pretty friendly to open source for a long time. They were an early supporter of Linux back in the early 2000s. Like they've kind of put their cards out there, but IBM is a very closed off company in terms of their workforce, in terms of the way they work with companies, work with organizations. They provide, some proprietary solutions, some open source solutions. They're basically a consultancy company at this point, research and consultancy. At work for us, we contract them to work on certain applications that we need. They're not necessarily applications that you would just, they're not like RHEL. They're not just applications that already exist and you kind of just buy, whole hog and work with them. They're custom built things. So I imagine IBM might leverage Red Hat's talent in that area, because Red Hat does a lot of the same things, but IBM wants to get their cloud stuff, OpenShift and Ansible and all these other things that work really well for cloud deployments. That's kind of what IBM's going for. And I mean, they now say they're the #1 hybrid cloud provider, but yeah, okay, whatever. And I just think Red Hat will stay independent, but give it maybe 2 to 5 years and we'll start to see, the IBM culture creep in. And the problem is, if that does, a lot of the developers at Red Hat will most likely jump ship because the company won't be the same anymore. And IBM really can't lose that amount of, that kind of investment that they put into Red Hat, because $34 billion, mostly all they're buying is the employees, because the technology is all open source. They're not buying some special secret sauce here.
Right.
They're buying the brain share, the brain trust that all the employees make up. And
actually, they didn't buy it for the employees.
You don't think so?
No, because 90% of what Red Hat does, and what I've dealt with Red Hat, is service solution contracts, not actually the employees. So AWS has a $6.4 billion contract with Red Hat over the next 20 or so years, because they do all of the service and support for AWS's backend. Like absolutely everything that they build is either Red Hat or any kind of service set for that. AWS is one of the largest scaled. Now it's not a hybrid like IBM, like IBM's components are, but it is scaled. They also have a huge contract with Microsoft for Azure. A lot of the components that Azure uses are technologies that are built off of Red Hat's Zen technology. So Red Hat actually has patents that may be open source, but they actually do have patents that are only specifically related to Red Hat. They have a lot of service and support solutions that are very solely that company. They're worth every dime that IBM paid for. I will agree with you that give it 5 years, they're no longer going to be the same kind of culture that they were. But I believe it'll probably be a hybrid culture, kind of like Google is. When Google adapts and acquires companies, I think IBM's starting to do the same thing. They did that with Blue, which is one of the largest consulting companies that IBM acquired. They're a lot better than Dell, because Dell acquired ECS, I believe. EMC, yeah, whatever.
EMC, yeah.
Yeah, EMC. So they acquired them and then completely incorporated them into Dell. So they kind of, I would rather that IBM acquired Red Hat. Yeah, that thing. That Tyler showed. I actually think it's better. I'm actually afraid that Microsoft is going to acquire Ubuntu, but that's just my fear.
Do you reckon that Red Hat killing off KDE was in response to the IBM buy, or prior to that?
I think that has to do more with the use case of the corporate machines that they use when it comes to RHEL.
Yeah, it's more of a focus thing.
It's not. You're not going to kill KDE or Plasma. It's its own project. Like them dropping support is no different than Canonical officially dropping official support for Kubuntu or whatever a few years ago. It's no different. The project's still going to live on.
So in regards to them not, and I realize he's not there, but in regards to them not particularly buying it for the employees, I think that they are buying it for those employees, because they provide a lot of support for, they provide all these support contracts, but the people who know the software most intimately, the people that know Red Hat most intimately are those engineers, are those support people that work for Red Hat. And if you want to provide that same level,
that's questionable.
Those people.
That's questionable because Red Hat also does a lot of external training. So there are a lot of people that actually work on Rail with Rail that are not actually employed by Red Hat. It is one of those service solution style situations where it's that's the reason Red Hat acquired CentOS back to Red Hat to bring it in under the fold at the time that it did that, is because a lot of system administrators, solution providers, and stuff were using CentOS as their platform tests, and then they would migrate into Rail. For IBM, this is a one-stop shop for them. This gives them the opportunity and ability to build, develop, and scale in their own house. They don't have to worry about someone else. They don't have to worry about a Canonical. They don't have to worry about Microsoft. They don't have to worry about a consortium controlling SUSE. They don't have to worry about any of that. Now they have something that is in their own house, their own ability for them to be able to go the directions. Because even Intel is working on their own version of Linux. They're building their own scale solution. IBM is thinking about that just as much as it's thinking about what's going on. If a hardware provider is building their own core system, then IBM has to think about what are going to be the consequences if this group decides to completely remove the I/O handling, which is what Intel did. They built their own, I guess we'd call it scheduler, their own designed scheduler that is completely separate from Linux. It's like it's its own thing.
Talking about Clear Linux?
Yes, the Intel based, yeah. So with that, IBM's thought process is they need to think about getting ahead of the game. Where are we and what is our future to be? Like, where are we going to be in 10 years? Where are we going to be in 20 years? So the acquisition of Red Hat gives them a 20-year head start of where anybody else would be. Like, Microsoft will have to engineer and build and work and do these things. Now, IBM has got a company that's already working in a direction, and all they have to do is make that direction line up with their core principles and where they're wanting to go.
That makes sense.
I feel like IBM's tried this before, though.
3 times.
Software.
Three times.
Yeah. Okay.
Anybody remember OS2?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That was a bad one.
And I mean, what does this Red Hat acquisition really say for AIX? I mean, AIX is still valid in mainframes, but
right.
All right. Anybody else want to chime in on that? Okay. All right. Let's move on.
Let's move on. They're going to own the cloud. That's what they've done it for. They want to own the cloud because Red Hat's just a major player in the cloud. And so as soon as the deal goes through, it's supposed to be by the second half of next year. Once it's all gone through and they've paid their $34 billion, they're going to go to the top of the cloud in one lump sum straight away.
They're going to try.
They want to be that other person's computer. Like everybody's like, hey, I'm going to put it on the cloud. And IBM wants to be that other person's computer.
They do. Yeah, but from what I've heard, they've got like maybe 5% of the market share, and they're so far behind numbers 1 and 2, even combining with Red Hat to become number 3. They're so far back. They're gonna have to find a niche section of the industry to claim as their own. Now, granted, it is big enough that even getting a little, 5% is still gonna make them a ton of money. But they're never gonna match what is already out there.
Well, technically, they actually own the hardware. So they own about 40% of most of the major data centers in the world. Like, they own 40% of them. Like, it's theirs. They own it. Like, think about that if you're thinking about a level of full stack for them. If they own 40% of the global data centers, and now they have a full service contract solution from hardware level all the way up however far up you want to go, Red Hat adds an extra component for them. It adds something that they can say, this is one of the leading open source platforms in the world, because that technically Red Hat is. I mean, the only other competitor is Canonical and Ubuntu. But it is. It's one of the...
But now you got to convince major international corporations to change.
Yeah, you got to go through Dell and
not
HP.
something they like to do.
So the thing is they're
what
going
is
for
the one distribution that you can order on a Dell, an HP? What's the one distribution?
RHEL, yeah.
Exactly. They don't have to change anyone's mind. They bought what everybody uses.
Hardware is a big
You
factor,
can
though.
also get Ubuntu.
You can put your Ubuntu on a Dell.
Yeah, you can.
You can,
You
but
can have Ubuntu on a Dell, yeah.
but when you're looking at the enterprise, it doesn't come that way.
No.
Yeah.
And out of all of this, I think everybody's forgotten that at the moment. I think Canonical is the biggest server.
Oh, absolutely.
Provider.
Yep. No, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think the thing is that IBM is going for a hybrid approach. They're not, Canonical is pretty dominant in, just like native cloud implementations, but these are looking for hybrid implementations. So Red Hat is still really big on-premises data centers, and may not be as big in the cloud, but it's really big in like inside corporate data centers, inside on-prem installs. And if they can own sort of that whole stack between not just cloud but hybrid on-prem and on-prem stuff, they own the whole spectrum of cloud computing.
Okay, I have a quick question here. When you say hybrid, are you talking about both local and offsite stuff working together, or are you talking about?
Nope, that's what they're aiming for.
Yeah.
Okay, because I keep hearing hybrid and IBM together, and when I hear hybrid and IBM, I keep thinking quantum computers and classical computers working together. So, just wanting some clarification here.
It's just connecting your on-premises infrastructure with cloud-based infrastructure and having them work together.
Right.
Okay.
So it's
Thank you.
basically a platform as a service style, software as a service, and infrastructure as a service. So it's all three of those components and integration between the three of them. And with the acquisition of Red Hat, they now have control of all three components with needing no third-party access. All three components are now fully integrated.
Well, that sounds good for them.
In theory,
not for us.
Well, I was just reading something that Anna Rita said in chat, and that was to do with the fact that everybody now seems to be wanting to buy Linux. So, are they doing something right, or which is a very good comment, really, when you think about it. Everybody seems to want a piece of them, yet they never wanted to know anything about them. So, what's changed?
Their stock
They've
price.
realized that Linux runs the server world and the supercomputer world and the cloud world. They all run on Linux. Nobody ever really knew that publicly before, and it's becoming glaringly obvious to everybody, and the IT professionals and businesses are realizing where the backbone structure is and has been for years now. And so they're actually coming out and speaking about it now.
Well, that, and if you can buy Linux, then you can make a profit on it. If you don't buy it, it's just going to continue to get bigger, and you can't make profit on it.
All right. Well,
I mean,
look.
I've seen this cycle already once. I literally watched it in the 2000s.
You're never going to make money on Linux. You make money on the support services, which is where they're aiming.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because that's
Fair
where Red
enough.
Hat
Yeah.
gets their money, is the supporting.
Yes, that's
Right.
Yeah.
So a company would try and monetize it any way they possibly can.
Yeah. Okay, Rocco, what's your next subject?
Well, we could talk about IBM all night long, but as maybe it's not big in money wise, but I think just as big news is the whole thing with Solus and Ike. And Solus this past week or two, I think it was, asked everybody to stop their Patreon support for Solus because they didn't have access to the Patreon page and the funds themselves. And there was a big letter put out by the Solus team. And then, well, I think it was yesterday, there was an open letter from Ike put on Phoronix, basically explaining some of what is going on, maybe not everything, but at least partial explanation of what's going on. And it does say that he will not be involved in Solus anymore. He is in contact, I guess, with Josh and the guys at Solus to try to give them access to the accounts and the actual infrastructure that they have. So that is a good thing. But what do you guys think?
I think it's another lesson in how open source projects that start off with one guy or one girl and don't plan for the future and don't plan for succession. We keep seeing this. One person with a lot of drive and a big ego wants to take control of their project and not relinquish control to other people. And they think they can live forever and they will continue to work on this thing forever. But that never, ever, ever happens. And there always needs to be some way for you to back out. Now, whether that's you're going to have a kid or there's a medical problem or you're just sick of it or you're burned out, whatever it is, there's always got to be some way that you can take a step back and the software can live on. Like, it's all very well saying, well, it's open source and it's out there, but there's more to it than that. There's all the build systems and there's the release management and the bug fixes and security updates and all of that. And I think open source projects need to have a long, hard look at themselves and think, am I doing the best thing for my users? What if I was hit by a bus tomorrow? What if, there was an illness in my family? What if I decided I don't like doing this anymore and I want to go and live in a field? And, whatever it might be, you got to factor that stuff in, because if you don't, you're doing a disservice to your users.
And I think where Solus is concerned, I think Ike had potentially foreseen that, because despite all of the problems that Josh and the team had, all of those bits and pieces were in a Solus company name. What hadn't happened was that they didn't have like the master passwords, or the companies that he had gained those services from weren't told that, okay, it's not just me, Ike, there's also Josh and the other guy whose name I can't remember. So the good thing is they now have got control of virtually everything. It's just the PayPal side of things that they're trying to put the final.
Right. But the fact that they've had to go through all of this,
yes,
this shouldn't have happened, and Ike should have been able to walk away and send a private message to the guys and just say I'm leaving. And could have just walked away and said nothing more than, I'm leaving, personal reasons. Don't need to have a conversation about it. I'm walking away. And they could have said, okay. And then they could have taken over the paperwork, and they could have taken over the Patreon and PayPal and all these other admin rubbish that you have to do part of the problem with this is money. It's because there's money changing hands. If there was no Patreon, there was no PayPal, and it was just a box in the cloud, well, someone's got to be paying for that somehow. But it's as soon as you've got people who are giving you money, there are expectations, and
absolutely.
I think that's
because everything else they got shifted over to the new servers on their own and got it set up and running again for the 3.99999 ISO.
But my question is, what were the people supporting? Were the people the backers of Patreon? And I'm going to be blunt, because I used to back Solus. Were they supporting Ike or the ideals of the project? And that's something that those guys should be asking themselves.
Oh, what does the text on the Patreon page say? It's as simple as that. Does it say you're supporting Ike Doherty, who is developing Solus, or does it say you're supporting the Solus project?
Well, to be honest with you, when I raised that question, I think it was last week or the week before, about whether to continue supporting Solus, because to be honest, the reason that I even started supporting them was so that was because of Ike and his vision and his drive to make things better. And so that he could leave his job at Intel and work on Souls full time. That was the idea.
Right. And part of the problem is we put these, for want of a better term, and it's a misused term, rock stars on a pedestal. When we do that and we shine a light on them and they're publicly posting all over the place, and it's there's a personality there. If they want to step away and they want to do it privately for whatever reason, it doesn't really matter. If they want to step away from everything, they should be able to. But that makes it very difficult when this cult of personality that permeates open source means that people want to know, well, where is Ike? What has he done? Has he run off with the money, or has he just stopped working? Is he ill? Like, people have all these questions they want answered. And if it's solus a project, then it really, I mean, you could probably, most of the people here and most of the people in the chat probably couldn't name more than half a dozen people who have ever worked on Ubuntu, right? Because it's Ubuntu, it's a brand, it's not Ike, whereas Solus was Ike, and nobody knew the other guys working on it, the small team behind him. I mean, some of us did, but most people didn't, because Ike was the guy who was held up as this, rock star. And I think that was part of the problem, part of the downfall, is people had expectations and they weren't met.
I think my biggest issue was just the handling of the whole situation. It kind of had made me lose faith in it a little bit, and that trust needs to be re-earned.
So that's surprising, because I felt the opposite way. I mean, I felt that Josh and the team handled it as well as they could. They were as open and honest as they could, and moving forward, they have definitely learnt their lessons. And Josh has already said that every member who's a member of the core team, all of the companies that they buy services from, have been advised that these guys have admin privileges and can do what they need to do with the account. All of their emails are now registered with these organizations. So I don't know what else they could have done apart from foresee the future and say, okay, what do we do, Ike, when you walk away?
Right. And this is the thing. Sorry.
No, it's great. It was just a hard situation for everybody to be in general, because I mean, the core Solus team that was left, they don't want to say anything until they know exactly what's going on with Ike, because there's no communication there. So when is the right time to say anything? And that's hindsight. A lot of us, it's really easy to speculate when you don't know what's going on. And for them, they know everybody's speculating, but they're not ready to say anything because they don't know what's going on yet. It's a tough spot for everybody.
I thought they brought it out at the right. I thought they waited long enough and brought it out at the right time, because when they knew, and like they said on that, it was a long page, and they didn't know, and they weren't going to speculate or say anything until they absolutely knew what was going on with Ike. And I thought they handled it very well, and they're doing a great job up until now, I think, those guys. But I think the annoying part for a lot of people would be that Ike was all over Google Plus, and I will be leaving Intel if I reach this amount of money every month, that on Patreon, and I will leave. I mean, it was him mainly that was driving that, So
on that note, I remember Ike going around all these podcasts last year saying, "Oh yeah, I'm building a team around me. I have these great developers around me." And then when it came time for those other leaders, the other leadership of the team, to take control, they had to go through all this stuff. It's like they weren't prepared initially in the first place.
It's
by no fault of their own, I don't think either. Yeah. It wasn't like they didn't want to be prepared.
Some point, I think what Alan said about that you need to prepare for these eventualities is fine, but I think it's also like sometimes some projects just start out as a one-man thing, and if it dies, it dies. Nobody cares. It's sort of like eventually it gets to a point where it dies and people start asking questions, and it's kind of hard to know where a project lies. I think it's a bit harder than just saying, oh, you need a backup plan. Like if it's just you doing thing on your own, you don't really need a backup plan. Second, how do you do people remember what happened with Void?
It's a similar thing. And
how do people feel about that comparing these two situations? Because I feel this has resolved better in that he says, "Oh, I'm leaving. We're transitioning."
I think the big difference between the two, and Alan hit it on the head, as soon as you start changing money, then you have to start thinking about people's expectations.
Absolutely.
Despite the fact that it said you were being a patron of Solus, I think Big Daddy hit it on the head as well, that most people then thought that they were supporting Ike. But you have changed hands. Money has changed hands. You are paying for a service, which for a very short while, people thought, hey, am I going to get this anymore? Thankfully, they will do, and they're going to be starting up again soon if you look at their Patreon page. But I think that's the difference between the two. Void was just this one-man band, and he fell off the radar for some reason.
So there's a couple of things to take away from this. I mean, one thing, without wishing to be smug, like our Ubuntu code of conduct, which has existed for years, 10 plus years, explicitly says, step down respectfully, responsibly, hand your things over. Don't just walk away. It's part of our code of conduct that we expect people to not necessarily actively think about every day, but it's in there explicitly so that you do think about it at some point. At the point when you do step down from a team or you decide you can't contribute anymore for whatever reason, you think about those things and think about how it affects other people. And the fact that we've had that in there for like however many years Ubuntu's been around, yet there are so many projects that start up now that don't think about that at all. And I realize Ubuntu is like orders of magnitude bigger than Solus, but it still surprises me now, 15 years later, that people are still making this mistake. And the good news is that this is publicly known about Solus, what's happened with Solus. It's all out, the laundry's all out in public, which means other people are now thinking about it. I've already been contacted by one project that said, would you be a backup for us? Because we don't want to have all our eggs in one basket. We just need a name on a piece of paper and someone who has access to all the accounts and the passwords. You know, we need someone responsible who would do that. And I think that's great if people are now thinking about these things because of what Solus went through and probably because of what Void went through, and they don't want to be the next Solus.
Quick question, Alan.
There
How
are
long
organizations now that handle that stuff for you, that handle you that stuff for open source projects.
Yeah.
Quick question now, Alan. How long did it take Ubuntu to get to that stage, though, where they had this understanding of...
We had a code of conduct on pretty much day one. Code of conduct right at the beginning. It is the basis for a lot of other projects' code of conducts.
Does my memory serve me right that you guys have a service or such that you'll mentor people into doing it the right way around? Did I read that somewhere correctly?
We may have had one in the past. I don't know that still happens now. But the only reason I mention it is not a, you didn't do the way we did it. But
no, of course.
I'm still continually surprised that people still make this mistake. I am and I'm not, because as you said, like one person creating a little project, they put it up on GitHub, it gets a couple of stars, gets a couple of forks, a couple of people contribute to it, they do a few releases, it grows, and then more people start using it. People start relying on that project, and maybe people start integrating your project in their project, and now you're a fundamental part of the internet. And you've gone from one guy coding on his laptop in Starbucks to a fundamental component of lots of projects online. It's at that point you need to kind of think, okay, what's the future of this thing, and how is it sustained if I decide to walk away?
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
It's tough keeping on top of that. I mean, that's just a valuable life lesson.
Yeah,
that can happen anywhere, not just here. I mean,
it's the same with the distro I use. I mean, TechStart is very ill, and so like he's already handed over the keys to his minions, kind of thing. So if anything does happen, the project lives on. And he thought about it, and he said to me in like a private thing that what he was doing. I know, and that's cool. So we know that. If I was to disappear, the only thing that will be missing will be my TDE desktop, basically, and nobody would care, But at the end of the day, that's all that would happen.
I
But
don't know.
the
I've heard
actual
a
price.
few people say, you know, a one-man project, someone dies or someone moves on, nobody cares. I don't think you can make that judgment now. Like how many things are people like interested in retro, like going back and looking at something that exists?
Oh yeah, I see what you mean, Alan. Yeah.
So I think you may.
Hannah Montana Linux.
Hang on. By the way, I've still got a mate. Didn't I say? I think it was on this show that I was going to do a Hannah Montana Linux once. So I said I was going to do a respin. I hadn't forgotten. I haven't forgotten. I've just been tied up with what I'm doing.
Yeah, Michael said that as well, but we're still waiting.
Yeah, well, that's Michael.
It's okay.
I think Ike's letter was both mysterious but also fairly revealing. I mean, he didn't hesitate in mentioning that there was mitigating circumstances playing a part in his leaving the Solus project, and he's also acknowledged that the project has been running under its own steam and standing on its own feet for quite some time. I think I almost get a feeling that he's kind of acknowledged the fact that it's a project he started, and thinking he was going to be in control of it the whole time, has suddenly realized that it's now developed or blossomed to be out of his control. And he even told Josh, acknowledging that he was locked out of his old main accounts. Look, you guys can have it all. And I'm just going to leave it to you to develop as you may. I think Ike just feels like his part's done. He's started a project. He's developed it as far as he could. The team has taken over as a natural evolution, which he, again, acknowledged was probably going to happen anyway. And when the time felt right, and I'm not sure about these mitigating circumstances, probably spurred along that moment of being right, I just made the leap and said, here you go, I'm giving you the keys, and he was done, moving on.
Well, hindsight, before he left for this great big move, that would have been the time to say, hey, I'm having this great big move, let's make sure you guys have access to all of these accounts before who knows what's going to happen over this time.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem was the communication. Not that he was leaving, but the communication.
Absolutely, yeah.
That wasn't there. That people just, if you had come to most patrons and said, a week after you decided to leave, hey, I'm going to be leaving. See you later. That would have been way better than not saying anything at all. So,
just left everybody guessing. That's what the problem was. Everybody was guessing what was happening. Everybody did think, did he run away with the money because they were locked out to the patron and so on.
I mean, I'm not saying that he needs an excuse to leave, because real life takes over for everybody everywhere. So he doesn't need a reason to leave, but the communication would have been nice so that people would know what's going on.
Yeah, and it's not as if he hadn't done the big move before, because he moved from the UK to Ireland. And then, so for him, moving from Ireland back to the UK should have been something simple. I think, as Rocco said, it was life that got in the way, and now he's a father, and all the best for him for that.
Yep.
I was going to say, I think the lesson learned is. I was going to say, I think the lesson learned can be that open source projects need to be better at communicating their stuff.
Yeah.
Like with what's going on. You've seen it with Void. You've seen it with Ike. GNOME has the same problem. The communication is a big thing that I don't know why more open source projects do. I mean, Ubuntu is like with the survey for 1804 with the hardware stuff. You guys were very open with that, and that's the kind of the communication I think more projects should be taking a note of, and lessons learned from these other projects that don't do it.
We've certainly made mistakes in the past in terms of communication.
So, Rocco, who else has the key to the Biddle Kingdom?
That would be Mrs. Biddle.
I'm gonna have to make some arrangements. Okay.
Communication is essential.
No, but we wish Ike the best in everything. In life, and whatever he does, we wish him the best.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And an occasional sleep-filled night, which he's probably not going to have for a while.
Yeah, I'll see.
in years.
Hey, we didn't pick a distro.
Ooh.
Hey, how about we go with Manjaro XFCE, huh?
Or
Interesting.
Solus KDE?
Or whatever. Whatever you guys want.
Yeah, Manjaro XFC would be I boot it up on my Galago. I can't read anything. I shut it down.
All right, how about Manjaro anything?
Deepen. Manjaro Deepen.
A
We've
Manjaro.
done, didn't we do that before? Or was that?
Deep in. Yep.
I'm sure we did Manjaro deep in once before, didn't we? Didn't we?
Yeah, we did. We did deep
Yeah.
on some.
Probably did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Manjaro's just gone to 18. I revisited it again this week. It's as rock solid as it ever was. And I also tried Fedora KDE, which is also a great
Yeah,
distribution.
Fedora 29 just came out, didn't it?
Yeah, Fedora just dropped.
How about Fedora 29?
Fedora would be interesting.
Have you ever considered doing a distro test where you have to do everything in the command line, no GUI allowed? And see
Wow.
how far you get.
It's just like this. I think we're rolling into the Chromium OS area.
I have, Popey, I have installed Gentoo before. Yes.
Yeah, I can see Popey not making next week's biddle.
Get your little thing out, Alan.
Yeah, please remember, Alan, that if you do that, next week we're back to 2 a.m., 1 a.m.
Wait, does that mean that if I install a desktop through the command line and I didn't have one before, I can use it?
No. Which means even your web browser is text based.
So
you're on links.
You're going to do this.
Get that links going.
No, we never did this.
I think Fedora.
I think I could.
I'll do it.
Vote Fedora.
I've done it before.
Fedora.
Or let's find out who's brave. Let's give them two. You can do Fedora or you can do the command line.
I'll be up for the command line. I would just uninstall the X server, not a problem.
That's easier said than done.
How would you play like Rocket League?
I tried putting X server and Alex on Ubuntu server. It is not pretty.
Yeah, but you're on. That's going to be
Can I
a
do,
nice choice for you.
I'll do Fedora
Can we
29.
do different spins
Fedora.
of Fedora? Or just
Yes.
regular no?
Pick a different one. Yeah.
I like the two options. Let's do Fedora and the command line.
Let's do it.
Yeah, you can do that.
Either or.
Sounds good.
I'm doing Fedora. I'm not doing no command line. I'll be lost.
Yeah, I ain't either,
Absolutely
Colin.
lost.
Sorry.
Sorry about that. I know how to use a command line, no problem, but to run every day, nah, I'd be lost.
I think there'll be
fail the
4
moment I
people
open the
doing.
browser.
Yeah. I think
The
there'll
only
be 4
problem I
people-
have with, I'm sorry, Zeb. Go ahead.
No, go on, Rocco.
The only problem I have with Fedora is the way it partitions the drive, and you gotta have,
It's a little
you
funky.
know, XFS
Then
and
just have your
you know, like,
partition. Have it already set up so that you've got your UEFI, your swap, and your main drive, and just tell it where to put it. Worked for
Zeb,
me. this
I
time, right?
just
It's really
partitioned my
cranky.
test drive. I took, you remember the 30 partitions I had? I
Yeah.
just formatted it down to a total of 5 partitions, which is a swap,
Wow.
2 EFI boot partitions, and 2 regular partitions, so that it can take 2 distros now. I just did that. Now you want me to install Fedora, which is going to completely ruin all of that.
That's what the IC dock is for.
Did you not leave?
IBM own Fedora now.
Did you not leave that 100 gigabyte space for what if? 'Cause
No,
you're a
I
hopper.
didn't. I didn't do the what if space.
The what if?
Yeah.
Is that little bit of partition unallocated you're talking about, or what?
Absolutely. I always
Yeah, no, I
leave-
didn't.
Yeah.
So Paul had a question. No, IBM doesn't technically own Fedora. Fedora is a project that's sponsored by Red Hat. Hopefully that answers it.
Kind of like a SUSE and OpenSUSE.
Mm-hmm.
Slightly different, but same general.
So, how long before it's renamed Blue Hat?
The guy's Silver Blue, that's close.
No, IBM's old. It'll be called like Top Hat.
Yeah.
Plus one for blue top hat.
Blue top
Well, isn't it going to be a hybrid? So wouldn't it be like a purple hat or something?
I think I saw an image that was IBM Enterprise Linux, and my immediate thought was Imbel.
Enterprise Linux.
Citarellus Imbel.
Imbel.
All right.
Dan, what's that RHEL project? Desktop something blue?
Yeah, Silver Blue.
Silver Blue.
Yep, that's flat pack. Basically, it's actually, yeah. If you're going to install apps, that's what you're going to end up using because it's OS tree.
Silver Blue from Big Blue.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think one day we need to do a challenge where we just use Flatpak's app images and snaps only. That would be a good challenge.
Yeah, but
One
most
day.
people probably don't have the RAM in their system to be able to do that.
I mean, I'm sure my 64 gigs could handle it.
Yeah, mine.
Yeah, Tyler's got it. Yeah.
For those of us who have 64 gig in my
Tyler and I could do it.
And running a Threadripper.
Yeah, no, my 32 will be okay as well. So it's all good.
All right.
So Fedora, is it?
Fedora or command line,
Fedora
whichever
and/or
your
command
choice.
What do you mean by command line exactly?
Well, off to Nix OS I go.
Yeah, exactly.
All I'm going to do is just load up my OS and take away the Xorg. It's one command.
No, you got to start again from
Put it all out.
scratch, mate.
I can do
You can-
Linux from scratch if you like.
No. What I'm saying is you can't just take what you've got and take away the UI. You've got to start from the terminal and build it up. None of this. Here's
installing
my
it?
bit. Take
So which distro installs just to the command line?
Arco Linux D.
Okay, then cool.
You can do it with Arco Linux D.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I've done that. Yeah, I've already installed
Yeah.
that before.
I actually did forget about Arco actually. Arco didn't register. Okay, that's cool. That's doable.
I've done that. I've done it already.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
All right.
You could also do a server OS.
It's time to end this now. You know that.
No.
Does anybody got anything else they want to bring up before we end it? Speak now, forever hold your peace.
Nope.
All right, Dan, last word.
Well, thanks for having us. This motley crew here, as usual. Not much else to add. Just thanks for having us.
Awesome. PZ.
As usual, check out the latest episode of Destination Linux when it comes out on Wednesday evening, stroke midnight, stroke Thursday morning, because Michael can never be on time, bless him. And just remember, whatever flavor of Linux you want to lick, just enjoy it.
Yes, exactly. Zeb, what's all this announcement about? This episode 95 that Ryan's been pushing and pushing and pushing.
Yeah.
Find out on Wednesday.
Spill the beans, Zeb.
Find out on Wednesday.
No exclusives today.
All right, Adam, last word.
Thanks for doing this every week. Thanks for showing up, guys. It's a good time. It's nice to have a somewhat sane conversation about Linux with somewhat sane people, and you guys take it easy.
All right.
Okay, who was he talking to?
I don't know if he said. I think he called us sane. I think that's what he said.
That's why I said
Never
somewhat
suffered from the
sane.
sickness of sanity.
I was going to say somewhat sane.
I was going to
All
say,
right.
there you go. He used the somewhat.
We'll take that and run with it. Popey.
You can also find me on the Ubuntu podcast, which is at ubuntupodcast.org, which contains approximately 27% Ubuntu.
There you go. Approximately, he said. Keyword. Colin, last word.
Okay. Thanks for having us, Rocco. I enjoy this every week. It's great. I'm looking forward to the development of Ferrin OS, and I will try Fedora this week because, believe it or not, it was actually pretty much my first distro that I used. So, and it was too hard, and I moved on. So, haven't been back to it for a while. So, Fedora Core 6, I think, is the one I used last time, which is a long time ago. So, I'm looking forward to having a look at it. So,
All right. Wendy, this will be a familiar challenge for you.
Yes, I'm excited about some more Fedora. I do enjoy Fedora, and I know the Destination Linux secret, and I'm so excited for you guys to all find out on Wednesday.
Spill the beans, Wendy.
Nice.
All right.
They won't give us secrets if we tell them.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is part of the secret.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Thomas.
Okay. So first off, thank you for having me. I love doing this every week. It's really fun. Also, Drugger OS Wallpaper Contest Part 2 is up, and all you have to do is go vote. You don't have to sign in. You don't have to sign in anymore.
Post the link there again, man. I'll put it through.
It is in the YouTube chat as of
About 54 times.
now. Yeah. I keep trying to push it because the last time I literally got like 2 wallpapers submitted. So I'm trying to get a bunch of votes this time. Trying to make up for it, you know. So.
All right.
Yeah. Thanks.
Matt, last word.
Off to NixOS I go for the week.
Nice.
Come on, Matt. When are you going to start participating in these distro challenges here? Calling you out.
You want to call me out? Go ahead.
We don't think obscure enough.
I was going to say, NixOS is command line, so, hey.
Oh, there we go.
All right. Rocket Wolf, last word.
Oh, well, always thanks for being such a great host and having us all here. And as a result of all us being here, I'm hoping Farron pulls some interesting information out that he can use for developing the OS. Wish him really well on that, but I'm going to be keeping an eye on it and see how it's going. And of course, we'll be wishing Ike Doherty our best. See you later. Have a great time. I, for one, will be trying the Fedora 29. I just don't have the cojones to try a CLI install all by itself. So. Yeah, I'm not afraid to admit that. So good luck for the rest of you guys. I'm going to be looking forward to that. And see you guys next week.
Awesome. Dave?
Thank you, Farron. Thank you, Rocco. And you're not allowed to die or ever leave because Fiddle needs to be here every week.
Gotta die sometime, Dave.
Never. You
Gotta
are
die
not
sometime.
allowed. Not
The day's
allowed.
already picked out. I just don't know when it is.
Just upload his consciousness to the IBM.
Oh,
cloud.
is that another Destination Linux secret there? The day of your death?
No, I don't think so. Only one person knows that one. Tyler.
All I got is Masonic.
There you go.
Wow.
All right, Christopher.
Thanks for having me here. It's been a great talking about Linux and other related nerdy stuff every week, and hopefully it will continue until you obviously will pass it on in a responsible and fair manner. As for the distro challenge, this is probably going to be the easiest one for me because I have installed Fedora in VirtualBox. I have installed Void on my crappy laptop from the command line, and I've also installed NixOS on the computer I'm looking at right now. And for the guy who's installing NixOS, you can always go on the IRC channel. It's very friendly, and they're happy to guide you through any questions you have. So that's all. Thanks for having me.
All right, Allie.
Been a pleasure as always, week in, week out. It really is a pleasure being here. I'm going to have fun with the command line, either through the distro that Zeb suggested or through NixOS. I'm going to try them both actually, see which one I get along with the best. Yeah, it's been a great evening, and thank you for having me here. Oh, and trinity.mypclinux.com for a decent distro if you want to try it. Just saying.
That's right. You know it.
I
All right,
know.
Paul. Last word.
Yeah, thanks for allowing me on here. Yeah, it's been fun. I enjoyed last week's challenge, and I'm probably going to do the Fedora too. Probably not the Arco Linux D. I've read about it, but it's beyond me for right now.
Yep.
Thanks all.
Me too. All right, Carl Schneider in the house.
Thank you, Rocco, for having us. And yeah, I want to try out that CLI challenge. That'll be good. I've already been running Fedora for like 2 weeks, and or I guess about a week now. And then and it's been rock solid. It's been good. So, but yeah, that's it. I can't wait. And Rocco, you demand.
No, you demand. All right, Joe. Last word. First
Hello.
word. Last word.
Hello and goodbye. That's all I got. I'm sorry I came so late. I missed you guys. At least I got here tonight for 5 seconds.
See? It's all good. Thank you to each and every one of you for being here. And like I said, Farron will benefit definitely from the feedback you gave him. And sometimes we're a little hard on distros because they don't do this and they don't do that. But I think this is stuff that he will take and learn from it and change, because I was even noticing a conversation with him in the Telegram group, the Destination Linux Telegram group, with one of the Linux Mint developers. And they were going back and forth about a blog post that Farron had made, and the developer talked to him about maybe some mistakes he might have made with Linux Mint, and he was very open to and did change his blog post about what he said about it. So I think he'll definitely learn from it, and it can only get better from here. All right, that's it for this week. We will see you all next week with a Fedora week.
And command line.
Love or hate week.
See you, everybody.